Going to reconvene the November 21st meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard. We know the meeting has been warned because we met at 5:30 in executive session. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of the November 7th meeting. Does anyone have any comments about the November 7th meeting minutes? And if you do, let us know. If you don't, would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 7th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chair's remarks.
Or 4-0?
I'm sorry. Yeah, 4-0. I'm sorry. 4-0. We have one missing.
Sorry, Tim.
Yes. I just have two things. First, I think on behalf of all of us, we want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And second of all, on Friday, the 24th, is that the day? November 24th, the tree is going to be lit in downtown Brattleboro, Plenty Park, 5:30, they're going to have hot chocolate, and at 6 o'clock, there's going to be the tree lighting. And I know Dick DeGray is looking for a Santa Claus, so hopefully Santa will be there. So we hope everybody comes out, because it'll be fun. So those are my two happy holiday announcements. And does the town manager have any remarks?
I do. I also have a happy announcement. We've been advised this week by FEMA through the National Flood Insurance Program that our standing with them through what they call the community rating system has improved. Our rating has improved from a class 9 to a class 8. And that means that...
No more floods.
Well, I wish it meant that. It does mean that for policyholders in Brattleboro, the discount will increase for the reducing the cost of purchasing flood insurance for Brattleboro properties. Brian Bannon, who's our zoning administrator, but wears some other hats also within the planning department, is the person who's primarily responsible for the administrative part of this. He's what they call in the federal nomenclature our CRS coordinator. And the work that goes into making the community more prepared for floods and more resilient from floods involves a lot of different town staff. Primarily, the activities that relate to this program are in the planning department and in the public works department. The field work is almost entirely public works work. And then there's also property-related work in terms of how we manage land uses and what we permit and what we don't permit on particular parcels through the planning department. So through a team effort of being really conscientious about making sure that we protect as much as possible against flood damage in Brattleboro and then documenting it well, we've now been given this better rating and are able to achieve savings for the property owners.
Good news.
Yeah.
Does anyone on the select board have any comments or committee reports at this time?
I do not.
Nothing for you.
No one does. Great. Now, this is the time in the meeting where we have public participation. And if there's anyone in the audience that would like to comment on something that is not on tonight's agenda, this is the time to do it. So does anyone have anything they'd like to say? No. All right. Thank you. Now we'll move on to liquor commissioners. Would someone like to make a motion to convene as liquor commissioners?
So moved.
We have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 4-0, and we are liquor commissioners. And the first and only order of business is a proposed addendum to the liquor application. And this has come up from the Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition. And what they like to do is have us require that the applicant for the liquor license include their alcohol sales policy with their application. If I got that right.
You have that
And I don't know if Peter, you want to talk more about it, or we want
Sure. I think Cassandra would like to
talk more about
speak to it.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to
Yeah.
chime in.
And introduce yourselves for the viewing audience.
I didn't know what you opened up when I heard the click. I figured, well,
Lasta was really nice and gave me a seltzer because my throat was dry. I actually have some handouts for you also. as I talk about them, if you can pass them, they're all associated with what I'm going to share. So I'm Cassandra Holloway, and I'm with the Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition. We've been serving this community and the towns around Brattleboro for 25 years. And we work to reduce substance abuse in our area, as well as to prevent early onset substance use. And we work from kindergartners to town leaders and all stakeholders, from schools to law enforcement to landlords and, in this case, liquor licensees. So I want to start by acknowledging that Brattleboro's liquor licensee bylaws that went into effect in 2013 under the town leadership of Ken Schneck, Dick DeGray, David Gartenstein, Christopher Chapman, and Dora Bobolis. And they put this in place, and we're extremely grateful. It has helped us to help our retailers be responsible in how they serve and sell alcohol, and it also has helped us to build a stronger relationship with the town and with you as liquor commissioners. And I also wanted to just share with you, there is one primer that has a little pink sticky note on it. Yeah, it's a little teaser because we're hoping to be welcomed back to talk about that. But we partnered with the Windham County Prevention Coalitions and the Windham Regional Commission got together and created a primer for town decision makers and zoning and planning committees on how they can implement regulatory and non-regulatory activities and strategies to make their communities healthier. So this particular bylaw is highlighted in there, and we're hoping it will be adopted by other towns. So I just want to thank you for that, but also hopefully you'll be a lead for other towns. I'll go a step further in thanking Annette Cappy for making sure that the alcohol sales policy that we'll be talking about today, as well as self-assessment tools, are provided on your website under the liquor licensing page. And so I do ask that when we go right into the request, there is a very technical request in that link is no longer active. And I also revised the alcohol sales policy to the one that you have in front of you, because the one that was on there was more of an example versus a template that could be like actually filled out by the businesses. I also added on the bottom of the second page for them to put in how staff can address customers who refuse to leave, because a lot of them have different ways to deal with that, and I think it's good to have it in there. Some have you call. Sometimes, like if you're at a gas station, say, you might have to call somebody. You might just go to the manager if you're in a restaurant. So that is kind of a fill-in for the businesses. But all of this step 3, there's like 1, 2, 3, 5 sections that they're expected to do. It's all in here. So we're not asking them to write up a alcohol sales policy, nor are we asking you to review each single one. You have 89 liquor licensees, and to go through 89 every year it would be a high expectation. But I did add a line for who filled this out and when it was last reviewed. So my hope is that every time they renew their license, it will give them an opportunity to pull out their sales policy and review it with their staff, confirm that it's still active. Right now, you're just going on them saying that they have one, and we don't really know if they have one because there is no copy of one. So let's hope they are, and let's hope they're reviewing them every year, but this is just an opportunity to help reinforce that. The other thing I'd like to have added is an incident report, which comes from the DLC website, Department of Liquor Control website, because it's referred to in the alcohol sales policy. That way they don't have to hunt it down. It will just be right there on the town website. And let's see, I got one more page. I also just want to take this opportunity to inform you that the Responsible Retailer Program is up and going. There's 1/3 of the liquor licensees are participating in it, so we have about 31. And we already did a staff enhancement training that was customized for staff specifically, and we are in our first round, starting our first round of mystery shopping, which where they go to the sites to see if they will pass or fail if they have somebody order or purchase alcohol. And those will be people over the age of 21. So if they do fail, there's no legal ramifications. It's more so the participating retailers can be informed if their staff is actually carding. And lastly, I just want to say that we focus most of our efforts on environmental strategies such as these bylaws because they are what makes the most impact in improving the health and safety of residents. And with that said, we would love to come back and talk about the primer and continue further conversations about ways that Brattleboro can help in making our community healthier and around prevention. And I also just wanted to make a note that when I was looking at, I looked at the 89 retailers, and I wanted to see if that's high in the sense of how many alcohol outlets there are for how many people are in the town of Brattleboro. And the national median in 2010, so unfortunately they don't have a more recent one, is about 4.8 outlets per 1,000 residents. And Brattleboro has 7.7 outlets per 1,000 residents. So that's an area that we can explore because it just means that there's just more responsibility and also can also have potential consequences because the Center for Disease Control did a study and found that the greater outlet density is, the higher risks around public health and safety concerns such as higher alcohol consumption, impaired driving, injury, crime, violence, neighborhood disturbance, and other harms. So,
is that 7 point whatever? Is that comparing communities of similar size and economic?
So they did 88
function?
studies, and so the median that they came out with was 4.8. And I'm just letting you all know that Brattleboro has a 7.7. So that means it's a higher density for how many residents there are. So when you look at strategies around alcohol density, outlet density, they really highly recommend that you reduce the percentage of retailers that are to the residents. So
I think we asked this question a while back,
Yeah.
too, a couple years ago, about whether we were above or below average.
Yeah.
We're looking at a map and all,
Yeah,
all the little
and,
spots that you can buy a beer.
I don't ever remember hearing a percentage. so
yeah,
it's
I mean,
interesting to hear.
again, this just kind of came up as we were looking. I was like, yeah, that would be really cumbersome to look at that many, policies, and that just made me look into how much. So it's definitely something we'd want to explore as well alongside with you. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention since it came to mind.
And I think that's one of the things we grappled with is, because we do kind of tend to just hand them out as they come in.
Yeah.
How do you say no at some point?
Well, you look at the list and who are you going to take off?
I know. That's what I mean. When somebody new comes in, how do you say, well, no, we're not going to give it?
Well, there is, that goes back to the primer. I mean, there are ordinances that you can have that are actually alcohol density ordinances, which either has to do with area, like downtown, we only want this many businesses to actually be serving alcohol or selling alcohol. It can actually be how close they are to where children and families would, hang out. And then there's also just how many we have within our community per resident or per business. So there's different ways you can do it, and we can definitely explore that with you.
Can I recap what we're talking about tonight so I can make sure we're staying on track?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another
Yeah,
meeting.
sure, absolutely.
So tonight, what you're suggesting we do is add something to our current.
I think it's as simple as saying establishments shall provide a written alcohol, a copy of a written alcohol sales policy.
Yeah. And can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Where do these documents fit in to what you're asking?
That
us?
is the alcohol sales policy.
This is what it is
that's.
now.
I mean, they could do their own, but that hits on all of those.
Okay.
So they could just literally review that with their staff, sign off on it each year, and just keep it on record.
But we're not you're not asking us to require them to use this form.
No.
Okay.
No, they are required to hit all of these areas.
Perfect.
So if they want to, and we can help them if they want to get deeper into that. We can certainly help them. I know one business is they literally have them fill out when's the last time they can sell an alcoholic beverage. They have them handwrite it. What year at this point they have to, were they born? So some can get really deep.
Perfect.
But we're there to help them.
Okay. And where does the incident report form come in?
So that's on here. It's under D, where it says procedures for contacting law enforcement and keeping records of occurrences.
Okay.
So keeping record, that's an incident log. That's from the DLC. So I just was recommending
Okay.
it be on
Okay.
your website just so that they can just
Okay.
download that without having to go into
Okay.
the DLC website.
Okay.
Thanks for
Perfect.
asking.
Yep.
And I also made sure the adventure taxi ad, because that's now, I have that number on there, and they're 24/7, which
Yep.
is great.
Perfect.
And
So this is a current cab number, not post
Yeah.
all the other
yeah.
cab issues, okay.
And I called them today to confirm they're open. I don't want to have them close at 6 p.m. and that's not
Perfect.
going to help for everybody.
Yeah, and I think what we're talking about doing tonight is asking the staff, town staff, to work with Cassandra to come up with what the language should be. Is that what you're recommending we do tonight?
Yeah, that, we had prepared that recommended motion when we were of the understanding that the proposal was to actually review each of the 89 as they come in and check
okay.
them against the form and make sure that they were complete. And we were concerned about being able to handle that workload.
Right.
Particularly, it's handled in the town clerk's office right about the same time as town meeting each year. So that's why we worded it, that we wanted to work together and come up with how we would handle that. In between then and now, I've come to understand from Cassandra that the suggestion is not that we do a thorough review of each policy, but rather than simply having somebody sign off and certify, yeah, we've got one. They're asking that people have to actually submit it with
Yeah.
their application. All we would be required to do, if you agree with this sort of level of review, is note that they have included the policy attached to their application for renewal.
Yeah.
And then we would have it. The point being that we know that they actually do have one because they've submitted it. We don't take on the responsibility of looking at the content of it, but it's available. If there is an issue at that establishment, we can pull that renewal application out of the file and have that policy right in front of us.
Exactly.
Is that, am I
Exactly.
saying that correctly?
Yeah.
So given that, I think you actually could, instead of moving to have us work together on language about how the review would be conducted, I think you could simply to make a motion that you approve having applicants for an initial license and applicants for renewal be required to submit their alcohol sales policy with their application.
Thank you, Pia.
I move
I'm writing it down
that
too.
we,
Are you writing one down?
well, I see Jan writing it, and I wrote a little bit, but I
Yeah.
bet she got more of
I've
it.
been,
That we have liquor license applicants in their initial and renewal applications submit a policy,
Alcohol
copy
sales
of the
policy.
alcoholic sales policy at the same, with the application.
Does anyone in the public have a comment? Yes, sir, please come up. And tell us who you are and where you're from.
Howard Fairman, 9 Canal Street. I had not expected to speak on this evening, but I was frankly astonished that the Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition is intending to run what they call a mystery shopper program. I am a long-time Vermont DLC certified seller and server, first through third classes. It is the prerogative of the Vermont Department of Liquor Control, the liquor inspectors, to check for underage sales or underage service at licensed establishments. Now, the question I put to you is, if someone was proposing to perform duties usually performed, and legally so, by the Brattleboro Police Department, would you approve it? This is what they are proposing to do, how can I put it, pretending to be Vermont liquor inspectors, and I would suggest that in doing so, they are overstepping their boundaries. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'd love to speak to that. So we actually created this program with Steve Waldo, who was a Department of Liquor Control educator for 30 years. We also ran it by the Department of Liquor Control. This is not the same as a compliance check because a compliance check is with somebody who's under the age of 21. This is somebody who's over the age of 21, and each of the retailers are aware that this is one of the benefits of being part of this program, so that if there actually is a compliance check done by the DLC, that they are more apt to pass. So it's a way for them to stay on top of their stuff. So there is no consequence, again, to the business. The only people that are informed of it are the contact that they asked to have the information provided. So usually it's the owner or the store manager or the business owner, and the staff person who actually filled the compliance, or the mystery shop. It's not even compliance, the mystery shop. So I hope that speaks to that. Again, it's just to help support the businesses, and they are actually very excited about that piece of it.
Thank you. Does anyone else? Oh, yes, Hillary.
Oh, yeah.
We should ask the town
Seems
clerk.
like a good idea.
Hillary Francis,
Hillary.
Town
Hi,
Clerk.
Hillary.
Hi. So I think this is a great idea, and I'm definitely relieved to know that we're sort of supplying a sample for them to work with and then sign, so that we don't need to review all of them. That made me a little nervous at first. I guess my question as the staff who's going to be working with these applications, if somebody were applying and submitted something that was not the exact sample and it was missing a piece, or I think that we should still talk about what the expectations are from the staff. While I don't need to review the policy itself, if there's a piece missing, do I need to review it, send it back before sending it to the select board? Is there still that back and forth aspect from the staff for those that aren't following the exact sample that you submitted?
Yeah, so I'd love to talk to you further about that, and we have the capacity to support them. So if it's, we can either have a set template that just says, hey, by the way, this was an incomplete. There's a sample one that you can give them. We can give them the link, so we can just create a automatic email that you can send to them to say but I can also look at them for you to make sure that they're meeting that. If it's because I actually get excited about seeing different policies and seeing how people are doing it, because generally it's more expansive than what is here. So I'm happy to just talk to you further about that. But I would think that that's something we could support you, do that piece for you. And yeah, so yeah.
Because I think
No, go ahead.
Well, I think the question is a little further than maybe that helps, because right now I don't think the town clerk's staff, correct me if I'm wrong, Hillary, knows all the ins and outs of what's supposed to be in an alcohol sales policy, correct?
Correct.
And I think what the concern is that adds something to you if all of a sudden you folks have to be versed in what an alcohol sales policy looks like, to know something is missing, which does put a burden on you folks.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's having to go through it, make sure all the pieces are there, be well versed, and then there is that, whether it's me communicating with Cassandra, there is that added back and forth of this piece is missing. I want to, we want businesses to thrive in Brattleboro.
Right.
And so I don't want to be just like, oh, that's missing. Sorry, you don't get your license. I want to work with them to make sure that they're complying. And so there becomes that back and forth piece. There's the I need to be well versed, and then there's the added back and forth. And I don't know how likely it is that businesses are going to submit their own rather than
Use the template one.
All right, well, yeah, go ahead.
David, the motion that you made is just kind of a preliminary thing to get dialogue going, isn't it?
No.
No, it's to say this is going to be in your application.
Yeah, that they have to apply and submit that thing.
And there's a difference between including and actually approving. And we're not saying
Well,
in
maybe
here
we
that
should-
it's approving. And
Right.
basically if you're looking at this and going, ooh, it's missing, then you're approving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a threshold decision for the select board to make as to whether your intent in the action that you're going to take is to have each one of these reviewed when it's submitted and have deficiencies identified and then have deficiencies corrected, which is how we understood the initial proposal a week or so ago.
Right.
But then in the clarification that we had received since this got published over the weekend, I understood the revised ask to be just make sure they have one not review it. But if there's something that is labeled alcohol sales policy that's attached to the renewal, that's more than what we've been asking for up until now, when all they had to do was sign and say, yeah, we have one. So we would see that there actually is one. We wouldn't be charged with the responsibility to actually review it and judge it.
Right.
We would just note that they had submitted one, and therefore they would have met our requirements. I'm speaking for you again, and forgive me,
no,
but
it's fine.
correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of what the Prevention Coalition is asking for is not to create that additional burden where we have to develop expertise and look and judge something as to being sufficient or not, but simply to note that it's there. By doing that, then these are on file. Then just the same as the applications being a matter of public record, so now are the alcohol policies a matter of public record. And if an establishment has a problem somewhere during the year,
Then you'd be able
it's
to-
easy to come and see what their policy was.
Yeah.
Is that- and that's your intent from this?
Yeah.
On that
Hillary,
basis,
does that make sense? I mean, I just want to make sure that Hillary's.
Right, it's not on her, right?
It does make sense, but if somebody attached a document that said alcohol sales policy and said, we're going to follow the rules in Title VII and we're not going to serve to minors. My impression is that that doesn't hit on all of the points.
Right.
Am I to accept that and say, okay, they turned in an alcohol sales policy, I'm going to now submit it to the select board saying they turned one in?
I think we accepted when we
and advise Cassandra to work with them to develop a more proper policy. If you see something that is that clearly deficient, but you wouldn't be charged with the responsibility to be looking
right,
through
checking
and
and-
reading them and
Yeah,
judging whether
yeah.
they have strong enough language.
But
and
if
that sort of
something
thing.
is like, if I see something and there's a flag,
Yeah.
I still submit it to you guys and say, they submitted, but then I work with Cassandra. Is that
Absolutely.
my understanding that
And
right?
she's going to be here during the renewal process to speak up for what she
Yeah.
thinks needs more attention from the board.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have good relationships with the retailers, so I'm happy to reach out to them and be like, hey, we can definitely help you with, enhancing your policy, and we actually have the sample if you want to use that. So
Okay.
we can take that on
Good.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
for support. Yeah.
I think
versus
the support is
expectation.
great, and I think that as long as I'm not reviewing it,
Right.
and I'm just saying it was submitted, and again, if there's a flag where it's clearly not what we're looking for,
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Cassandra and let her know.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
that works.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yes, please come on up.
Nick Nickerson from Brattleboro.
Hey, Nick.
I'm coming at this from the point of a simple country boy, and I don't understand all the bureaucrat teeth that's being rattled off so quickly, but I did pick up on something, and I hope not falsely, and that was a sneer about the number of liquor joints we have. Well, what is the problem with serving liquor? And if the people want liquor, what right do we have to tell them they can't have liquor? And what right do we have to tell people that they can't open business where they serve liquor or sell out liquor? I don't understand the patronizing paternalism that seems to be in the air about serving liquor. This is a free country. Let's keep it free.
Thank you. That's going to be a topic for another select board meeting.
Yep.
Does anyone else in the audience have anything they want to say? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to require that liquor license applicants include a copy of their alcohol sales policy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again.
Yes, you will.
Can I have a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Can I have a motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners?
So moved.
We have a motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Our one and only item on the Water and Sewer Commissioners' agenda is to abate past utility balances, I guess, on two mobile home parks. Mobile homes at the mobile home park.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
So
And the town
from
manager.
time to time, we have situations arise where past due accounts have built up on one of the mobile home locations, and then we learn that either the mobile home has been removed or it's been destroyed, or there's some other circumstance that the town can't reasonably expect to receive payment on the funds. The two that are in front of you tonight, one was an abandoned mobile home and the other was destroyed by fire. These are pretty rare. The last time we came to you with one like this was, it was actually a batch of them. I think there might have been 6, John, 6 or 8 at that time. And that was about 2 years ago. But at this time, we're asking that the 46 Valley Road location and the 3 Record Drive location that you authorize that these debts be written off, and in the nomenclature of the ordinance that we abate the past due balances on these 2 locations.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I mean, it would be harder to try to go after this than it's
It's essentially an unrecoverable.
It's
I don't know
unrecoverable.
if you want to add something to that.
Well, we've been working with Tri-Park on these mobile homes that have been abandoned or destroyed to try to get them to take those mobile homes and get them off the lot so they can get another mobile home on that lot that's going to be paying utilities and taxes and rent to Tri-Park. So we have this understanding with them that in these situations, we would come to you and request that you do abate any past due utilities to the point in time where the mobile home was abandoned or destroyed. From that point forward, Tri-Park will continue to pay the flat rate on that unit until they get somebody in there who will connect and start paying the water and sewer rate. So that's really where this originates.
So it kind of puts a little pressure on them to get that cleaned up and get a new tenant in there.
That's right. It's in both our interests to do that.
Yep. Wow.
I move we approve the abatement of past due utility bills for 46 Valley Road in the amount of $266.69 and 3 Record Drive in the amount of $483.83.
Does anyone in the public have any comments or questions about the abatement? Anyone else on the board have any last comments before we make a motion or we vote? We have a motion on the floor to approve the abatement of past due utility bills for 2 properties up at the trailer park, Tri-Park. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners? We have a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? We have adjourned as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Unfinished business, or a regular police fire facilities project update.
Yes, ma'am.
We're getting there.
Just a few more times.
We are getting there.
So this evening, I just can confirm that the final stages of construction are continuing at the Central Fire Station. The public now is able to come in the front door of the station and access the new administrative offices that are there on the first floor. And that will also be the access up to the meeting room when that is finished here in a couple of weeks. So we expect the construction to be completed by mid-December, and in the early part of the new year, we'd like to hold a ribbon cutting and open house. And so I'll coordinate with you and with the members of the Police Fire Facilities Building Committee between now and the December 5th Select Board meeting, so we can identify a date that'll work for the maximum number of people, and then hopefully you can approve that date that night.
Except
and
for John.
We'll announce it to the public.
Yeah, just make sure I'm out of
Last time it worked for John.
It's okay.
At the West Brattleboro Fire Station, the parking lot has now been paved. There is other site work that is continuing. We will not plant the landscaping this year because we've reached cold enough weather that wouldn't be a smart thing to do. So the landscaping will be planted there in the spring.
I know it was sad to see the building go, but it looks so much nicer out there.
It wasn't sad for us, we watched it.
I know. It does look great out there. So.
And you have the 2 financial reports that you see each time. So there's a list of a handful of additional relatively small expenses that I have approved, and then the overall financial report for the 3 projects. And we, at this time, have an uncommitted balance of $271,240.72. Any questions?
And we figured that we're going to actually probably end up using all of that.
I believe we will, but there are decisions for you still to make regarding, I think the roof is a pretty much foregone conclusion, but we want to bring you some additional information about that. The carport is something you're going to need to decide. Both of those at the police station. We will receive the input of the Police Fire Facilities Building Committee, so you have their advice before you make those decisions. If you do approve both of those, that would leave a balance from what we currently have of only $31,000, and it'll actually be slightly less than that by the time we're done. So yes, that would essentially use up the bond funds that were appropriated for the project.
That's what they were used for.
That's what they were appropriated for.
Considering the complexity of these 3 projects, if we come in
right on.
Yep. I think it'll be fantastic.
And that's where we are, and you actually have some flexibility in making those last couple of decisions. So I do think it's going to be the slam dunk prudent thing to do to replace that roof. The carport is a really smart thing to invest in, but it's a decision for you to make as to whether that's the best use of these remaining funds.
Peter, one question. The Richards Group payment for builder's risk insurance extension?
Yes.
Does that indicate that things are taking longer than we thought?
No, it indicates that you buy a policy for a year at a time, and we knew it was a 13-month project. It's actually probably going to be about a 14-month project by the time we get it completed.
So this is that.
We will get a rebate on that. It'll be a small refund once we actually get the work done. It's an extension for an additional quarter.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? The one question I have is the police station and the Westby Fire Station. Is everything, like, are there any problems or is everybody happy?
So you have both chiefs present. I'll represent from everything I've heard that both departments are very happy with the outcome at both locations. That's not to say that any building is perfect. So if you were to say, does everything work exactly right and there's nothing that needed a little tweak? No, that's not true. You know, you get into a place and you work in it and you find some things that say, ooh, you know, this needs to be adjusted. Or one example is actually the ventilation system at the fire station, the central fire station, was making more noise than what we expected that was disturbing some of the neighbors, and that's been able to be adjusted so that it's no longer disturbing the neighbors. So there's those kinds of things that we've been working through that you do with any new facility, but
did we move the neighbors?
It's a tremendous success, both from the timing of the project, the quality of the construction, the fact that we're coming in right on budget. It's all been very successful.
Good. Does anyone in the public have any comments or questions about the police fire facilities project report? Okay.
Ordinance.
We're going to move on to the ordinance to ban single-use plastic bags. This is going to be our second reading of the amended ordinance and a public hearing. So I'm going to call the public hearing to order. And what I want to do is just recap for everybody where we are. At the last select board meeting, the ordinance was amended to read, I don't know what page it is. Yeah, I'm just trying to count the pages. I guess it's page 3, from a 1 mil thickness of a bag to 2.25 mils. What is it? Oh, it means a bag with a thickness of less than 2.25 mils. So that's where we are now, and that's what we'll vote on this evening. And if it passes, the ordinance will become effective in July, is it, 2018?
That's correct.
And if it's not, we'll start again like we did last night. So I don't know if we got a public hearing, so I don't know if anyone in the audience would like to make any comments. Yes, please come up to the mic and tell us who you are and where you're from.
I know where she's from.
Hi, my name's Kit Whalen. I live in Brattleboro, Bonnievale Road. And I was at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and a so many people spoke so eloquently, and I'm not going to go over all that again, but I might have a new thing to mention. I would like to thank the Select Board for the vote. I think a lot of time was spent on it. It has been a long time since that was approved by the voters. And as somebody who voted for it, I'm happy to see that we're moving in the right direction. And what you just read is something that might have one baby tooth in it. And I would really hope that we don't go back from that 2.25 mil. You know, I think it's a reasonable place to start if that's as good as we can get in reducing and encouraging everyone to reduce the use of plastic bags. And I also wanted to add that this made me think that it's not just about bags, it's about the people who use the bags. And there are all kinds of people who know and care about this issue. And obviously everybody who was at that meeting 2 weeks ago cares one way or another. We know about the plan and we're invested one way or another in the outcome. But there are so many people who really don't care. And, you know, and I'm not trying to point the finger of blame at anybody because everybody has lots of things in their life that they worry about. But there are so many different reactions to a beautiful plastic bag like what Pal Brofsky brought in. It's sturdy, it's attractive. I have so many bags like that at my house. Many people probably do, and we laugh it off if our kids or our partners say, "Oh, God, you're such a hoarder." You know, I said, "Oh, but I can use this many times," and I have. And many people have these collections of bags at home that get used and used over the years, and then other people would take a brand new, shiny, sturdy bag from Sam's and say, "I like it. It's cute, but I really can't think of any use for it right now." So out it goes, and it's kind of painful to see that. But again, I can't blame people. We're all different. But anything that we can do to discourage that kind of thinking, I think is all to the good. So I kind of thought of this phrase that I like, that not only do people use plastic bags to contain their trash, they think of the actual bags, even the nice ones, and even ones that are thicker than the one that Pal Brofsky brought 2 weeks ago. They think of the actual bags as trash, and out they go. So let me see. So I also just wanted to mention that there is a concern about people who will have a hardship or an inconvenience when this is implemented. And one point I'd like to make that we've all probably thought of is that we have a long time until it gets implemented. People can prepare. The town can support people in various ways if you see a way to do that. And also people can just start saving these bags, you know, the ones that are flimsier than the required mill. Start saving them, socking them away. They don't take up much room. So
I have 800 of them in a drawer.
it's easy to get hundreds and hundreds of them and then just say, "I'm overwhelmed." Out they go. But, you know, maybe people will have a reason soon to think twice before they put something in the trash. So, thank you.
Thanks, you.
Kit.
Thanks, Kit.
Does anyone else in the audience have anything they'd like to say? Yes, please come on up.
Hello, Tim Maciel, Brattleboro. About a year ago, when David Scholes and Stuart McDermott and a few others started collecting signatures on the petition, there is one former select board member who came up to me and said, "Well, I'll sign it, but there's no way in hell that the select board is going to pass it because the business community will just be against it." So I applaud you for proving her wrong in passing the first, about to pass the first ordinance in Vermont. It is certainly just the beginning. We hope that this ordinance will be an example for surrounding communities, Putney, Dummerston, Newfane, and other communities in Wyndham and then other counties to pass similar ordinances. That's our hope, that's our anticipation. And we have started to organize a statewide organization to eventually get Representative Murawski's bill finally approved in the state legislature. So anyway, I want to congratulate this select board for doing the right thing, for listening to the people. When I first presented this, I was told that, well, this isn't something that the select board does. You handle mainly budgetary matters, and you have to get a petition to hear what people have to say. I've read the mission statement of the select board, and I would encourage you to pass similar ordinances. Plastic water bottles, styrofoam cups, these are all scourges on the planet. And I think most people in Brattleboro, my reading, is that they would celebrate a ban on other misuses of plastic in our environment. The other, one more point that I'd like to make. If you're like me, sometimes you go into a store and you forget your reusable bag. So you pay 50 cents for another bag, and eventually they accumulate. The co-op has a very nice little process where they have a bag tree, where if you have an excess number of reusable bags, you just put it there, and somebody who has forgotten can just grab it. I would hope that other businesses copy this practice. And finally, one last pitch for the timeline. When I spoke to the managers at Hannaford's and the Price Chopper, who are two of the main businesses that will be impacted, they said that there's no problem whatsoever in transitioning to being to getting rid of them. They said that we can do it overnight. Other stores, other Hannaford stores and Price Choppers have done it almost immediately. There's only been, in my recollection, in the last year, only one business person who's even objected to the idea. So I ask you, is it really necessary to have such a long transition period to 6 months from July? Is that really necessary? I would urge you to reconsider that, and a month, 2 months, I think. I know this goes against what you're saying.
I agree 100%.
Oh, okay, thanks. So, see, there's at least two of us who think that 8 months is quite a long time after 1 year of deliberation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Now, let me make a point of asking something. If we do amend the date, which I'm personally against, but I just want to bring it up, we'd have to bring this, we'd have to...
One more time.
We'd have to come and do another reading at the next meeting, because we would be amending
That's correct.
this. So just bring it
And
up.
having a 6-month period doesn't mean everybody has to wait for 6 months. I think
No, definitely
people are going
not.
to start transitioning
But I was
as soon as they run out of bags.
I was going to say, if you have a relationship with those establishments, it'd be great to have them get out in front of it even and encourage the other businesses to say, here, it wasn't so hard. We've made our steps. Just to...
Yeah, and with the support of the select board, it would have even more impact.
Maybe we can get them some free press if they are willing to get out in front.
Does anyone else in the public have any? Yes, please come to the microphone. Yes.
Howard Fairman again. I would like to first to clarify, and for the record, I would like to ask the board about a statement that the first speaker made, which was that this initiative has been approved by the voters. Has there actually been an official legal vote?
Yes.
Yeah, there was
overwhelming.
in March.
Yeah.
It was an advisory.
non-binding.
It was a non-binding vote by the
Correct.
people of the town of Brattleboro in March.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Yes.
Thank you. So it was so just to be sure this is correct, it was a non-binding petition.
That's correct.
Signed, I believe, by 1,300.
That's correct.
All right. Banning single-use plastic shopping bags in Brattleboro is a feel-good ordinance, disadvantaging Brattleboro merchants versus their competitors across nearby state lines, while having no conceivable impact on environmental concerns espoused by proponents. Instead, proponents should encourage Brattleboro and Windham County legislators to lead statewide banning of single-use plastic bags, an initiative that would be environmentally both exemplary and significant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else in the audience? Yes, please come on up.
Hi, Terry Carter, Chapin Street. Also, something to take into account is there are biodegradable plastic bags now, and they're not as common yet. But whenever we have an opportunity to encourage businesses to use biodegradable, and some of them are even good for animals. There's some made out of hemp that if they go into the ocean, sea animals actually eat them. And they are, at this point, they're probably very expensive. However, I think, we put pride in being progressive here, and if some businesses started using these biodegradable products, I think it would be revolutionary. Just an idea.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else in the audience have any comments that they'd like to make? Okay, I think we're going to close the public hearing. And does anyone on the select board have any comments that they'd like to make?
Yeah, I do, because I'm still going to vote against this, and I'm going to tell you why. I believe the intent of the initial article or the initial request was single-use plastic bags, and still in my head, I believe it is the 1 mil and under. So, and again, I think this is a feel-good, and I agree with everything that everybody has said, pros and negatives, but for me, I'm still going with the 1 mil, and I think that's where we should have ended up. But again, I'm glad that we're doing something. So I just wanted to explain that, because I don't want people to go, "Oh my God, he voted no."
Now I'm doing that anyways.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
I would like to just say that I'm not going to hold up the vote over it, but I also am not loving the timeline, because my concern is it took a year to do it, and then it takes 8 months to implement it, and then there's still a provision that merchants can wait another 6 months, and I just feel like it's wicked long. But I also know there's a saying that says something like, perfect is the thing that gets in the way of good, or something like that. So I'm going with that, and I'm not going to force the vote, because I don't have a temperature read that would work. But I do want to go on the record as saying that the timeline annoys me.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think I just wanted to the one gentleman who said that the local ban is less meaningful than the state ban. There is a state ban working its way through the legislature. Am I right?
You're right.
Yeah, there has been a couple of times.
So that is in the works. Personally, I'm okay with the timeline, because I think it's fair to give some people some time to prepare and to, again, get out in front of it with a campaign if they'd like to. That'd be great.
Yeah, the big stores can do it on their own.
Right, get some media
they can
for
say,
it.
hey, we want to do it tomorrow.
Right.
And please remember that single-use plastic bags will still be recyclable in Brattleboro.
Does anyone
If you-
else?
For that giant drawer that you have.
I use
It's like
it a
I'm not
lot.
recycling.
I'm gonna,
I do.
just so there's not another moment, I just want people to know I'm also going to vote against it for the same reason John is. But that doesn't mean, I'm carrying my reduced recycle bag that I carry around. But I too think that the intent at this point was single-use bags, and but I respect everything that everybody's been saying. That being said, we've closed the public hearing, but come on up. If we just let you do it.
It's just a statement. This is the first time I actually saw the full article. I've been watching.
Will you introduce yourself, please, so people know who you are?
Pierre Landry, Brattleboro.
I want the TV people to know.
Yeah. Sorry. It's the first time I actually seen the complete article. I've been watching the meetings. I watched the last meeting, and I was sort of surprised that 3 mil was too thick, 2 mil was too thin, 1 mil, which I agree with John, I think was the intent of the article. But I never understood where 2 1/4 came. Why is 2 1/4 better than 2 1/2 or 2? That being said, I also don't understand if we're gonna go with single-use, banning single-use bags, why are these little thin things that are on the rolls throughout every store in town not being banned as well? To me, that doesn't make any sense at all. I'd like to see the public vote on exactly what they meant. Because, you know, I see more of these going out, I see more of these flying around than I do the Hannaford bags with handles, or a bag from Sam's. That's just my statement.
Thank you. Sure.
Here, you just happen to have that in your pocket, or?
I was walking the dog and I didn't need it.
See, so that's
two use.
But we won't have them soon.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I agree with those bags. And the one thing I want to say, just on the record first, because I think some people don't know that you don't have to put your produce in those bags. Most of the produce you buy, you know, they just read the numbers off it and they have it in their computers, and you don't even need it to go through the self-checkouts. You have no need, unless you're, let's say if it's lettuce and you're like, I really wish that didn't touch the, you know, the rolly thing or something. But, you know, most of the time, I almost never use those little bags. And I would encourage members of the public to, the first time, once you stop doing it, it's really easy to just stay out of the habit of using those things.
So, would someone on the select board like to make a motion, if we're prepared for that?
I move we approve amendment to Chapter 7 as presented.
We have a motion to approve amendments to Chapter 7 as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No.
I know. I know.
The motion is approved by a vote of 3 to
You're a
2.
very good actress.
That's what I do.
I know.
Next
That's
up.
worth a round of applause. I know.
John leads it.
This is the start.
Next up, we're up to new business, and we're going to get our October financial report from John O'Connor.
Here we go.
Thank you, Kate. Included in the packet is the October financial report. And as of the end of October, we're 33.3% of the way through the year. And after making the various prorations that we make every month, the general fund budget would stand at 30.5% of the annual budget. So we're in good shape as of the end of October.
I have to sign it.
Utilities fund, the expenditures were at 34.7%. Parking fund was at 27.2%. And again, after we do a proration for interest expense in the utilities fund, their expenditures would drop to 33.0%. So right on target. At the end of October, the solid waste disposal fund had revenues of equal to 30.6% of their annual revenues, and expenditures were at 29.8%. And again, that really reflects revenues and expenditures through September. October refuse bag revenue and curbside collection costs will be recorded in November. The loan report shows that we had $4,443,254 in outstanding loans. 3 of the loans had payments that were overdue, and 1 loan is in default and fully reserved. Program income report shows that we have $474,984 in available funds for additional grants and loans as of the end of October. And then finally, the grant report has various information on 42 active grants and 13 grants that are in the application process at this point. So if you've got any specific questions on any of the line items in the budget or any of the other reports, I will try to answer those. If not, that's really all I have for you this evening.
Great. Does anyone on the board have any questions about the report? Can I ask one question? The program income, $474,000 in available income, does that include anything that we've earmarked for something, or is that just free and clear?
That's free and clear.
Okay. that's what you mean by available funds.
You have something in mind you would like to purchase for $500,000?
Yeah, we have 72,862 earmarked and not been spent, but this is net of that.
Okay,
None of that.
perfect. Okay. So anyone else have any questions on the board? Does anyone in the public have any questions about the October report, finance report? Thank you, John. We appreciate it greatly.
Thanks, John.
He is out of here.
The next thing is the FY19 proposed budget. And as everybody knows, we're going to be taking meeting by meeting chunks of it.
Get out the blue book.
The good stuff.
Would everybody refers to it?
Absolutely, yep. So
So we're not getting confused.
tonight, we're looking at the revenues and at the proposed capital purchases, both projects and equipment, with the exception of the proposed replacement of the fire ladder truck, which will be discussed separately at our next meeting. When we get to the capital items, they're under a separate tab for the select board members of a notebook. And for everybody's reference, the revenues are on the first 4 pages of the proposed budget. Starting at the top of page 1, there's town manager's office revenues. The only one of any significance there is the payments that we receive from various entities in town in lieu of taxes. We've had conversation about that in the past. The town doesn't actually impose pilots in the manner that the state does under state statute. We're not allowed to under Vermont law, but we do have negotiated arrangements with several different entities in town who make payments to the town. Because there's formulas that drive those, it's a little bit hard to predict. There's some volatility to it. You can see that we had in 2016 $132,000 received for that item, in 2017 $158,000. We budgeted this year 144, which is squarely in the middle of that, and we believe, because there's not been any substantive change in the arrangements that we have with these entities in town, that 144,000 is an appropriate budgetary figure for that number. So we propose that it be unchanged.
Now, can I ask a question?
Sure.
If our actual was 158, why are we lowering it to 144?
Because of the variability from year to year, because
Okay.
it depends on, some of the folks who pay this own multiple properties and lease space, and when they have vacancies, they pay a lower rate to the town than when they've occupied space.
Okay, perfect.
The next category is taxes. The property tax figure there is what was in the proposed budget that I submitted to you. It's the 2.8% increase, a little less than $400,000 increase, from $14,278,000 to $14,671,000. I would suggest that we focus on that particular item as we get deeper into this process and you start making decisions about levels of service and things that you may cut and things that you may want to add in. And we can be, as we go along, like we usually do, adjusting, where are we with the property tax from meeting to meeting, so that you know how that's shaping up as you get closer to making a final decision. The meals, alcohol, and rooms tax, we're proposing to increase by $15,000. That's to increase the budget. You can see that the actuals were 377 and 378. The reason we're proposing a number that's a little less than that is we've been moving the budget number up a little at a time because we have had some increase in this, but traditionally it was running solidly year after year down in the 3 teens and 320s. We had a year, I think, at 334, and then these 2 years, the last 2 years have been really good. But we want to be careful with revenues where we don't control the flow, and some things that happen out in the community or out in the economy can cause it to drop off suddenly. We want to be careful about getting too aggressive there, so we recommend 365. It still does provide $15,000 of additional revenue to the budget. And the other items there are recommended to be level funded, other than the collection charges, which is recommended to be reduced because it is a substantially reduced number last year.
Could you explain what collection charges are?
John can.
Yeah, good thing you didn't leave.
Those are charges related to tax sale. Properties that go to tax sale. There's legal charges. There's advertising, things of that nature.
Okay. Thank you.
Peter, on the rooms and meals tax, I'd asked about the steps for, I know the charter changed and the other steps. Any progress on that, or is that?
Yeah, so we'll have a detailed report to offer to you later in the process when we go into that sort of other items meeting.
Right.
The gist of it is that there is no provision for municipalities, even by their own charters, to do this exact thing. The penny added on to the state rooms and meals tax is something you cannot do yourself. You have to do it through the state's process. There are other kinds of business taxes that have been adopted by certain municipalities through their own charters as approved by the legislature. We'll have more information for you later in the process.
Sorry about that. As we go through the others, I'll hit quick summaries for anything that stands out as being significant. I'm going to skip over a lot of the smaller line items. Please ask about anything that you have a question about, and if I can't answer it, the department heads are in the room and are able to answer about the items that are within their areas of responsibility. So we're not proposing any change in the finance department, which is the business license, which comes in really solidly at right about 50 each year. The town clerk, also no proposed changes. There's really strong stability in both the liquor revenue and the dog license revenue. Little bit of variability in town clerk fees, but we're proposing that it be funded at or estimated at $106,000, which is consistent with last year's budget and the actual from 2 years ago. In the assessor's office, there's two very small items. Personal property fines and the lister's office miscellaneous. And general services, there was some old revenue. There were old revenue sources that are no longer included in the budget. Same with risk management. In planning, that's an item that's harder to predict from year to year, but each year at this time, Rod Francis does his best crystal ball forecast of based on things that we know, people who've been talking about making some improvements to certain properties, and especially if we see a larger one coming, then we might be a little bit higher with this number to anticipate a project that we believe is coming in the pipeline. But more often than not, we're going to be in the area of $50,000 to $60,000 a year, and the proposal for this year is $54,000. Moving on to the library, there is a substantive change. And here you might want to hear from Star because of a policy decision that's been made by the library trustees. And yeah, I think we'll ask Star to speak to the revenues, and as a foreshadowing of what we'll discuss a couple of Saturdays from now, some adjustments that have also been made in the expenditures budget for the library because of this policy decision. Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, Star.
Hi.
Thanks for the use of your building a couple weeks ago.
You are so welcome. Come back anytime.
Okay.
Even when there's not a meeting. So, you may have noticed that we have zeroed out our line for library fines. So the trustees have been looking at policies that are taking place throughout the profession. There's a strong move away from punitive library fines to go with more of a Netflix model or a Redbox model that you can't take out anything new if you have things overdue, but that we don't charge overdue fines. And what they found is that fines are a significant barrier to access for many populations. Oh, look, I have some notes here.
Just came in.
What do you know? So I've done my research. So we what libraries and librarians have discovered is and what many of us have known for generations, is that library fines do present a significant barrier to access for people. To look at our particular demographics, seniors often have trouble having access to transportation, so they get their books back late, or their DVDs, and DVDs carry a heftier fine. And so then they end up amassing fines, and that's significant because they're on fixed incomes. So, and we know that it's especially important for seniors to read. I've spoken with social workers that work with seniors, and they said that their clients that read have much lower levels of depression than their other clients because it's a way of interacting. We also know that reading helps stave off Alzheimer's. And it also promotes social activity because people talk about the books that they read to one another, and that's especially important to seniors. People with mobility challenges, again, also face those challenges with transportation. And then they get behind. They don't necessarily have access to renew their books online, and so they get behind, and they find it difficult to get to the library. Families have so much on their plate, and we really want families to use the library. And I've had conversations with people in the community that said, no, I told my kids, no, we're not going to the library because I'm tired of those library fines. We don't ever want kids not to use the library, families not to use the library because of library fines. Job seekers, people that are spending all their time trying to get work can miss bringing their books back. And we see this over and over again, people with library fines that come in and say, I'm so sorry, but I have to use the computer because I'm trying to apply for this job. And so we want them to be able to have access to all the resources that the library has. And I actually made a note when Hillary was talking. She said, we want businesses to thrive in Brattleboro. We want our residents to thrive in Brattleboro. And in order to do that, they need to have access to the library. So it's not just vulnerable popopulations, but that's who it hits the hardest. But oftentimes, and I will say, there are people in this room. I'm not even going to look, so you can't see who I'm talking about, who have passed me on the street and said, oh, I have library fines, I'm really sorry.
Star's talking about me.
I am talking about her.
I wear my dark
so I was
glasses.
trying to maintain your confidentiality.
No.
But now she outed herself. So anyway, it promotes, it develops a stigma. There's a sense of shame. There's a sense of embarrassment. And we don't want that. Some people, and yes, we do have forms that people can ask to have their library fines excused, but there's a stigma. Yeah. And people have to, know that they can ask for that form. And then they have to write a little essay of why they should be forgiven. And, people have really good reasons. Somebody said, I had an emergency C-section. See, here's the baby. Yeah, don't worry about a library fine. So, like I said, this is a trend in libraries across the country. One library that has done a case study about it said they got 95% of their overdue materials back within 1 week. So it's not that people want to keep the materials; they just don't make it back in time, and then they amass fines, and then they want to keep the books that are massively overdue. Because I have a wonderful, wonderful board of trustees, and they recognize, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, that budgets are moral documents and that budget decisions are value decisions. And we've heard so much in recent months about equity in this community, how we really want to promote social equity in this community. And I know you guys have all read our strategic plan because you all got a copy of it, and it's yours to keep. You don't have to worry about returning it on time. That one of our goals is to Oh, yes, to institute policies and explore efforts to ensure access and diminish barriers. And so we really are putting our money where our mouth is on this and where our values are, that we know it is important to have this kind of access and to eliminate these barriers for people to use the wonderful resources of the library. So we have, the trustees have agreed to pick up some of the other elements of the budget, as we will discuss in future meetings. And so they're going to pick up the training line. We've eliminated some lines like our bindery cost because, at this point it's easier and cheaper to buy a replacement copy from Amazon. Usually, every once in a while we get a rare book that really we need to send to the bindery to preserve it. There was a book recently that I found on Champy for the, monster, and it was falling apart. But I looked on Amazon and it's $200. So but that's a valuable addition to the collection. So we're sending that off to the bindery. But we did eliminate some of our expenses, and then the trustees have agreed to pick up some of the expenses. The other thing that libraries have discovered is that people want to support this. And I've talked to people in the community that said, I would pay it forward to pay somebody else's library fines. And so we will be running a public awareness campaign, and we will ask people, to donate to keep the library free for everybody. And so, we may have a jar that says, your change supports our change. Or I thought that we could even have a voting jar like they do at Amy's. Are you feeling generous or are you feeling guilty? So we'll...
Either way.
Either way, right. Just put your money in. So I did notice that we, in public library law, in Vermont law, it says that the General Assembly declares it to be the policy of the state of Vermont that free public libraries are essential to the general enlightenment of citizens in a democracy, and that every citizen of the state of Vermont should have access to the educational, cultural, recreational, informational, and research benefits of a free public library. So we want to make sure that happens to everybody.
Excellent.
Questions? Okay.
Thank you. I won't have to wear my dark glasses when I go in the library.
Good job. Thanks, Star.
Star, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Great idea.
Next is the fire department. We have a correction to note under fire outside revenue. So you'll see there's only two items of revenue here. One is a very slight adjustment, really rounding for the fire department banner revenue. This is at the bottom of page 2. But fire outside revenue, this is for when people pay to have a unit stationed at an event so it defers the costs incurred by the town of actually providing that outside assignment. And it was just a math error, actually. What we intend for this item and for the police outside revenue is to cover our administrative costs, and sometimes there'll be other incidental costs that are not recovered through the actual charges for the individuals involved. And so we have a 30%. We have the revenue item be 30% higher than the expense item. They travel together, so you'll see that some years we're very busy with outside assignments. Some years we don't have very many at all. So this is a item both in the fire department and in the police department that fluctuates pretty dramatically. But the reassuring factor here is we'll always collect more in revenue than we spend, regardless of whether it's a big year or a small year for these items. The correction is where it says 7,210, it should say $9,100. And we'll adjust as we make other changes based on your decisions in the weeks ahead. We'll note that change and the others and give you updated figures for where we are in the total status of the budget. Municipal Center, as I mentioned in the overview last time, this is a number that we actually hope will increase substantially, but it will be offset by expenses that will be incurred also. And it's not likely actually to hit the FY19 budget. It's likely those increased expenses and increased revenues are likely to be in at the outset of FY20. That's still subject to the further negotiations between the town and the state and approval by both the state authorities and town meetings. So there's a long road to travel yet there.
What was the $4 reimbursement?
That's a great question. Sorry. John or Patrick, do you know what the $4 was?
No idea.
Okay.
It's
Sorry, Dave.
overdue book.
We can check that out and get back to you if you'd like.
It's just funny to see it just sitting there all by itself.
Yeah, and you'll see that in certain line items, especially here on the revenue side, occasionally over on the expense side too. In certain areas where we had a small thing happen, whether it was some money coming in or some money going out, it needs to be recorded, and so it'll be shown as a line item in situations where we never budget any money for it, and we're not proposing to budget any money for it, but you just see it while it's part of the financial history. That's what you're seeing there, is that there was a $4 reimbursement for something back in 2017.
Somebody broke a basketball.
Don't know what that was.
Can we wait 1 second?
Sure.
The municipal center rental, those are current rental.
That's
people that are currently here.
That's
paying rent.
exactly right.
Yep. I just wanted to clarify. That doesn't include anything that we might do with it.
That's right. And that's why you see it's consistent with the historical numbers.
Yep.
That'll be a very substantial change, we hope, for FY20.
Yep.
Yeah.
The police accounts, there's only 3 that are changing materially. Most are unchanged. Town ordinance, we're reducing substantially. What that is the town's share of revenue that actually gets collected by the state for infractions that occur. We have to send the money to the state. They have a formula that they don't reveal to anybody by which they send some of that money back to municipalities. And there's no rhyme and reason to it. There's years when our ticketing activity is actually higher than the year before, and the money we get back from the state is lower than the year before. And I believe that the vice versa has happened too. I mean, there just isn't
transparency.
There is no transparency to this one. We've asked for explanations. It's the proverbial reaching into the box and trying to figure out what you're touching. The bottom line is that in recent years, it has been substantially lower than it had been in the past. And we had continued to budget at more like the level of what we had been receiving in the past. So for instance, our actual for 2017 was only $15,000, but we were still budgeting $37,000. We're proposing this year to reduce that number to 20 in the hopes that maybe we'll see some increase there. If we don't see some increase there, we'll ask for it to be dropped even further next year.
Now, is this like speeding tickets and stuff? Or
I'm not
what
sure
is this?
exactly which types. The chief is nodding. Yes, speeding tickets at least, and perhaps other kinds of violations as well.
So we share.
Do you want to speak to it in more detail, or is that sufficient?
Yeah, I just wanted to get like an idea of what we were talking about.
Right, it's motor vehicle violation.
Okay.
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 Why
That's
don't we
good.
keep
Thank
them, and
you.
then we'll send them whatever.
Because we're in a Dillon's rule state.
Yeah.
So the other 2 items that are changing materially in the police department are the upfit reimbursement, which is a small number for dollars, $4,000, but a significant increase in the percentages. The reason for that is if you look at the 3 years there, the actual from 17, the budget for 18, and the budget for 19. The actual for 17 was a partial year when the reformer first occupied the leased space up at 62 Black Mountain Road. The budget for 18 represented an estimated full year in the space at the estimated amount of rent. At the estimated amount of upfit reimbursement. But in the end, during the construction process, we actually did more work than had been originally planned there. That was done in coordination with the owners of the reformer, and we agreed on what parts they were spending and what parts we were spending, with the knowledge that the part that the town spent a higher amount than originally planned, we would get reimbursed for. And those decisions in real time, more than a year ago now, were made by the select board as those issues emerge. But the impact of that was that we actually now, on an annual basis, during the period of time when they're paying back, which is the first 4 years of the lease, will receive more annual revenue than what had been previously estimated. And so that annualized amount is actually $11,269 instead of $7,200. And finally, police outside revenue, it's exactly the same explanation as it was with fire outside revenue, that this is a hard number to predict. The last couple of years, it's been quite a lot lower than the budgeted figure. So we're reducing the budget by about $8,000, but the reassurance here is whether we hit that number or whether we come in well below or whether we maybe have a very busy year and go higher, however it turns out, the revenue item will be 30% higher than the actual expense. Public Works, we don't recommend any change, and it's only 3 small items anyway. The gas is a reimbursement figure that is proposed for level funding. The regional items are...
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Who are we reimbursing?
We get reimbursed.
Or yeah, who's reimbursing us, I mean?
So we get reimbursed. Steve can speak to the details. We're also looking at changing the fueling system, so this item might go away, but we are still in the sort of beta testing process with the new system, and so we need to carry this item for 1 more year.
Steve Barrett, Public Works. So that's just a surcharge. Public Works has a fuel depot, if you will, at Public Works, which services some outside agencies like rescue, some of the school department vehicles, and all the town vehicles. So what was done is there was a 5-cent surcharge that was added when we sold the gasoline, and that will actually, I've talked to John, it's been accumulative over the years. So eventually we're going to a new program, and we're going to disassemble the fuel center. So that those funds will be used to actually pay for taking the system down. Originally, those funds were used when a new fire suppression system had to be put on, or for maintenance, or if the pumps went. So ultimately, we think we'll have enough to satisfy taking that fuel system down.
And so far, the system that we're testing is going well. So if it continues to go well and we do make this conversion, next year you won't see a revenue item here at all.
Right. So see, that's the card system?
Yeah, the WEX card.
The WEX, that's good.
Yep. The 4 regional items are just that. These are items where we, with the exception of the overweight permits, which we don't even budget for, but we occasionally issue one, and so we get a very small amount of revenue, a couple $100 a year. The 3 that are more substantial are, again, payments that are made by others to the town, and we don't have any reason to expect that there's going to be changes there, so we propose level funding. Recreation and Parks is one that gets a really careful look each year. There are a few proposed changes this year. If you'd like to hear details as to why, Carol Lalott is here and can speak to that. What I can tell you is that in contrast to much of the rest of what you're hearing from me tonight about reasons why things are just steady, and one of the things we know in the longer run we need to work on is finding more ways to raise revenue other than property taxes, to take some pressure off of property taxes. The reason that there's such stability in so many of those other cases is because those are controlled by other people, and we don't really have influence over increasing them. In this case, these are the fees that we charge for the services that we provide, and so there is some flexibility, and Carol and her team look really carefully at this each year, and where there are fees that haven't been raised in a while, or where there's additional costs to a program, or there's some other basis for charging some additional fees, we do look at doing that wherever we can, because it's one of the few areas where we can raise some additional non-tax revenue. This year for the department, we're looking at a proposed 3.4% increase, or $8,000. If you want to address any of the details, Carol could do that. Okay.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Use of fund balance, I suggest we come back to later in the process, just as we're going to come back to the property taxes, because those are 2 that are going to relate to each other as we make some big decisions. And the transfers, the only thing really worth noting there is that the transfer from the parking fund is substantially reduced. Notice, though, that it's proposed to be just a hair higher than what the actuals were for 16 and 17. And the reason for the proposed reduction is just that last year, the $18,000 was a contribution from the parking fund to the purchase of a new street sweeper. The general fund paid for the rest of that, because the lion's share of the expenses for that use of that vehicle is on the streets of the town, but because it also does sweep the parking lots, the parking fund paid for $18,000 of sweeping. So that is the revenue report, unless you have any other questions.
Does anyone on the board have any more questions? Richard?
I had just one. Is it okay if I circle back?
Yeah. Refer to,
To which
tell
page?
us which page.
Sorry, page 1. I was just curious why, I mean, it's a small item, but just for methodology, why did you base the town clerk fees, which is 2/3 of the way down, on the previous year, but not on 2 years ago rather than last year? Is it historically closer to the 2 years ago figure?
So I'd ask Hillary to
Couldn't see Hillary.
speak to the 106 versus the 99.
I believe going back, looking at the numbers from previous years, that it was historically more like that. Not having been here, I don't know exactly, but just looking at the numbers, I believe that's the case.
Looked like an aberration.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Are we ready to move to capital?
Yeah, does anyone, I want to ask the public.
Sure.
Yes.
Franz Reichsman from the Finance Committee. I have a couple of questions. Just, I'm wondering if we do go ahead with some arrangement between the town and the state with regard to the municipal building, and there are renovations done prior to the fiscal year 2020, and those are shared expenses, will then there be a modification in the revenue for the municipal center figures for fiscal year 2019 to reflect whatever arrangement is reached with the state?
Only if the state occupies its space prior to July 1st of 2019, which is unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. So if we do receive any rent payments during FY19, they'll be shown in the actuals for FY19, but because we don't expect to receive rent payments until FY20, we're not showing any in the proposed revenue budget.
I'm not actually asking about rent payments, but rather if there's shared expenses for the renovations. How will that, I mean, I'm assuming if that goes ahead, there'll have to be expenditures before 2020. There'll have to be expenditures during fiscal year 19.
Yes, but they would be capital expenses. They wouldn't be shown in this general fund operating budget, just as the police fire fund is spent from a bond fund. Likely we'll have borrowed funds that we would be using to make those expenses, so they're tracked separately outside of this operating budget.
Okay, good, thank you. The other question is, for what purposes can the tower at the fire department be rented?
For what purposes can the tower?
Well, there's a $500 revenue item in the fire department budget for tower rental.
Tower rent. That's a communications tower, and it's not.
It's not the tower where they dry the fire hoses.
Not for right.
Okay, wrong tower. Thank you.
Any other revenue?
Anybody else? Oh, yes, please come on up.
It's more of a suggestion. Daniel Quip, Brattleboro. So like this budget discussion is really hard for the public to follow at home without budget documents in front of them, and really hard for members of the public here without budget documents in front of them. So suggestion 1, project it on the wall and have somebody flip to the relevant page that you're talking about. Suggestion 2, make Wi-Fi easily accessible in this room, or print some more copies. You know, like from like a accessibility, transparency kind of point of view, it's pretty tricky to follow along without.
Copies are right there.
They can download it too.
I know, but I can't get on the internet. I know. It's, you know.
You're right.
Yeah, thanks. And if they're available, make it clear.
We'll call it out from now on that we have copies available before we start the discussion. Thank you. Your point's well taken.
Anybody else? Yes, please come on up, Prudence. You have to come.
I'm sorry, are we on the Capitol now? Or
Yeah,
are we still in Red?
we're just going to start Capital.
So are you asking for public comments?
No, on Capital?
We're still trying to wrap up.
Yeah, we want to listen to Peter first.
Jump the gun.
They're excited. Okay, now where are we going?
So for the select board members with the notebooks, you have a tab that says capital budget.
Yep.
If you go there, you see a pink sheet. You can flip that over, and you have at a glance the capital request. For those of you who are working from a photocopied document, after the operating budget, the very next thing, you're going to see a sheet that is printed landscape, not portrait, and it's the header on it is FY19 capital request. It's one sheet that lists 4 projects and then about 8 different vehicle purchases. Everybody seeing that?
Is there a page number?
There isn't a page number on that. The last page number.
It sort of looks like this.
After the budget summary, the FY18 to FY19 budget comparison, 2-sheet summary. You got it? Does everybody have it? Okay. So there's 4 projects proposed for this year. The $250,000 for street paving and improvements is actually less than the $300,000 that we intend to spend each year. Last year we lowered this number because we had received a windfall from the state the year before, an extra $200,000, done some extra paving in town. We had intended to move it back up to $300,000 this year, but we left it at $250,000 because the overall magnitude with the ladder truck that we're going to discuss next time, not tonight, but with that $1 million in this program and the other vehicles that needed to be purchased and a couple of other projects, we were at a total capital figure that I thought was as high as we could go. And so we did not add the $50,000 back in there. That's something that we can give some discussion to later in the process, but you should know that we foresee being able to do still a substantial amount of paving with this, but it is only 5/6, so it's a little better than 80% of what we want to have as a steady state of funding for doing paving. And frankly, a drive around the community reminds us that we could, if we could afford to spend more, spending more than the 300 would be a good investment. So we reluctantly left that at 250, but that's the explanation for why. The next item, sidewalk repair and replacement, we have made a commitment. We knew we had really dramatically underfunded sidewalk repair and replacement over the years, and traditionally had been funding that at $25,000. Last year we doubled that to $50,000, and we said we're going to commit to going to $60,000 and then $70,000 and then $80,000 and $90,000 and up to $100,000, and hopefully steady state of $100,000 for the years that follow. So this is the second year of that commitment, and we're proposing the increase to $60,000.
And that's an increase from 50.
Increase from 50 to 60 for sidewalk repair and replacement. I know there are people who are here to speak to you tonight, and there are people who have written to you, and we're going to have a healthy conversation when we get to talking about equipment, and you hear from the public tonight about sidewalk plowing. So this is really separate from that, but part of that whole same discussion about trying to enhance pedestrian safety and just commit to better maintaining our facilities for what we all appreciate as a walkable community, but where we have needs to address that we haven't adequately addressed in the past. So we'll talk about the sidewalk plow when we get into the equipment portion of it. The skating rink energy savings, this comes straight out of the audits, the energy audits that were done a couple of years back. We've had a lot of communication here about wanting to implement as we can those. So we got a jump start on that with the utility fund and parking fund because they were funds were more readily available there. Here we have an opportunity to do the energy savings as a variety of different pieces of this that would total to $99,000 at the skating rink. And then at the Gibson Incan Center, we need to replace the roof, but there's an opportunity when we do that to also put in additional insulation, which was also recommended in the energy audits to provide better holding the heat in that building and reduce costs and make it better for the environment. So that's $115,000 of proposed funding for that combined project.
Now, can I ask one quick question?
Please.
With the skating rink energy thing? Is that 99 going to cover everything we need to do in the skating rink, or will there be more?
Yes. The whole
No, so that'll do the whole thing?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Moving on to the vehicles and equipment, $30,000 is our recurring annual commitment to the replacement of computer hardware. Even with the upgrade that we did, that's working out to be about right. Our operating costs, as we'll talk about when we go through the line-by-line departmental budgets in 10 days from now, we'll talk about some reasons why our operating costs in IT have increased, but the capital investment at $30,000 a year, we believe, will continue to be adequate for replacing things in a timely manner. Next is the ladder truck that we'll talk about next time. The police department is proposing 3 vehicles. I want to remind you when we talk about replacing 3 in 1 year that the police department last year, in order to enable investment in other needs for other departments, didn't replace cruisers. We have a practice of replacing 2 cruisers each year, but we took a look at the condition we were in. We thought we could take a year off, postpone the recurring 2 replacement. We really need to replace the 2 2012 Chevy Impalas this year at $47,000 each. And the 2005 Suburban is off the road. So that's a vehicle that if you need any greater detailed description, the chief would be happy to provide it to you. But the most essential function that provides is hauling the emergency, the mobile command center out to sites where the police department and the fire department occasionally need to manage an incident. And the Suburban is the vehicle that's equipped to do that. It also meets a variety of other needs for the police department, if you want to hear any further explanation.
My only question is, when we're looking at the Impalas, are we looking at starting to look at EV options for cruisers, since they're not for the Suburban necessarily, because I still think, I mean, it's good to have a nice solid heavy duty truck to pull things, but when we're looking at the cruisers, what are we looking at in terms of EV options? Or
The chief is interrogating. Oh, can you come up to that mic there?
That mic's fine.
We are in discussions with that through the state bid, but to give you actual specifics,
That's okay.
basically, last town meeting, I was handing some information because that is a reoccurring purchase that we do every year, and that's for something for us to be very cognizant of and try to see where in the state process do they have options for us to look at, like idling and things of that nature.
How does it look out there in Vermont? I mean, are a lot of electric vehicles coming around in police departments in the
None
state,
that I'm aware
or
of.
still kind of a slow-moving process statewide?
Yeah.
So that makes the bidding process tricky.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we found out last year, maybe the year before, is that there's so much electronics in the cruisers that they have to be idling to keep the battery charged and the equipment running. And I'm not sure there's any electric vehicle yet that's can carry that capacity.
Absolutely. We actually have 2 alternators in our cruisers because of the electronics.
Because it's just going.
We are very limited on our options,
Yeah.
not like the civilian model, which they have a lot of options. But what we carry, our battery load, our electronics load, really is a hindrance when we try to go.
And it's all on all the time too. But speaking of options and the Suburban, I think of all the vehicles when they used to be out here, of all the vehicles that were out there, that one didn't move from day to day more than any other vehicle I think that I can think of. And when I look on the list here, we've got a 2009 GMC Canyon animal control vehicle. We've got 6 Explorers and a Trailblazer, all of which are pretty high capacity for people and for towing or any other heavy needs. And I'm thinking if there's anything that we can get along without, and we've talked so many years about cruisers and about the need to keep up with the 3-year process. But I think if there's anything that we can get along without, this is this is what the one looks like the one to me. So I really would like to hear a lot more about why there's so much value there.
The other vehicles cannot tow that command trailer.
Yeah.
It needs to be a high capacity of like the Suburban Tahoe. And also, it's also used as a major incident command vehicle, not just to tow the trailer. So when we go to a major incident right now, currently we're relying on fire to show up that has a bank of radios, and that way we can coordinate things of that nature. The partnership and coordination has been great, but if it's a law enforcement only incident, now we're waiting for the responders from the fire department to show up with their major incident vehicle. We have used it in the past as that, but as the town manager said, it's been deadlined because it is so old.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend to replace that for our response call and coordination for major incidents. A most recent example is when we had those home invasions where a person inside was armed with a rifle. And until Chief Bacassi showed up, we were trying to coordinate that out of a front seat of a cruiser. So they have places where you have maps. It's very much needed.
Thank you.
Chief, can I just ask how many total cruisers we have?
9.
We have 9. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
What's that?
Yeah.
The 2008 half-ton pickup that's recommended is for the maintenance division that maintains our town facilities. It's just replacing a pickup truck that is worn out.
Is that DPW?
No, then there's 3 for DPW.
Okay,
That's actually the maintenance team. So there's 4 people who maintain the town buildings other than the fire buildings. Fire department maintains its own.
Okay.
And DPW does some of its own as well, but they get some of that service. And then all the other town facilities are maintained by this maintenance unit. The pickup truck is what they use to get around and move materials around town.
Where are they stationed?
They work, their headquarters, if you will, is at the new police station.
Okay.
You'll often have seen the pickup truck here over the years because it was stationed here when they didn't actually have a centralized unit, a centralized headquarters.
Do they have a office space up at the police station?
So the area at the back of the police department that was used as the instead of a construction trailer, where the DEW managed the construction project from, is what they're using as the storage area and office area for the maintenance unit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You'll recall that in the design of the police station, that there was 2,000 square feet for the reformer, and there was, I think it was 16,000 square feet for the police department. The building had a few more thousand square feet. I believe it was about 3,500 square feet beyond that. The larger part of that is still remaining as space where things are just stored. It's for storage and for any future use that we might determine is appropriate to make of it. And the smaller area of the two where the space left over is the one that the maintenance unit is operating from.
Oh, okay.
And then there's 3 DPW items. I want to speak to the next to last and the last first, and then come back to that third from the last. The 2009 dump truck and the 2008 pickup are just items that have done their service and need to be replaced. Dump trucks, as we know, depending on the size of them, are relatively expensive vehicles to buy. We buy sometimes that are even more than this. But the size that needs to be replaced at this time is a $195,000 vehicle. And then a 1-ton pickup truck at $45,000. Steve Barrett's here tonight, can speak to either of those and to the excavator. The one thing I want to note and emphasize about the excavator is the intent here is to buy. This is not a replacement. You'll notice that the other things are all replacing something that has been in our fleet for a long time. The excavator would be new, and the reason why we need one is to be able to do managing of particularly roadside situations, drainage improvements and drainage maintenance, in a manner in keeping with updated state regulations. There's a lot that's changing in road maintenance requirements as part of the water quality regulations of the state. And the excavator, and Steve, speak to this in greater detail if it's appropriate, but it's just more appropriate to the kind of maintenance that's required by those new standards. It's a more nimble vehicle, and so it'll also prolong the life of the traditional backhoe that has been used out of those situations. That we think the excavator is a better suited tool, and it'll mean that we'll get a longer life than had previously been expected out of the backhoe.
We've never had an excavator in DPW?
No.
Never?
We've always rented when we can.
Yep. Is this a wheeled? It's not a track. It's track. Huh.
Now, did we, maybe we just, like, the dump truck has been going on and on forever. Did we get a new dump truck? Or is that one of those things that was like, kept going, we kept moving?
We have several. So we have bought in recent years dump trucks,
Right.
but you'll see the price vary from year to year
Right.
because some are very large, very heavy duty dump trucks, some are smaller.
Right.
Steve can speak to the particulars of this one, but you'll see during snowstorms when we have our fleet go out and clear snow, there's quite a number of different dump trucks that are out, both from the utility fleet and from the highway fleet.
Okay.
This will replace one of the highway dump trucks.
Because I just remember, and maybe it's sort of irrelevant what I'm about to say, but didn't we just keep, like, there was funding for a dump truck and we just didn't do it and we kept moving it, or am I crazy?
Not in the last 3 years.
Oh, okay.
I got yelled at for that a long time ago.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to remember.
You remember that one, Steve?
Yeah, we've actually deferred, trucks depending on their condition. What we find is after they reach between 8 to 10 years, then you start to put more money in than the value of the vehicle. This truck that we're looking at 190 plus thousand will probably have a trade-in value of like 6,000, and that tells you what its true value and worth is. So traditionally, when a municipality gets done with a dump truck, there isn't much value left. In fact, they used to be good for the farmers, but we don't have as many farmers now. So it's approximately every 8 to 10 years that we like to replace them.
Okay.
Steve, just getting back to the excavator, do we have a trailer that'll...
This would be with the trailer.
That's with the trailer.
It's a small excavator, rubber track, so we can do it in the country. We could work on culverts and such on paved roads also. And as Peter explained pretty clearly, this is all part of our new stormwater regulations. We're putting more larger stone in the ditches to prevent erosion and more culverts, so it really fits into the plan. It's more versatile for us. We have an older backhoe that we think we can prolong the life of the existing backhoe if we get this piece of equipment.
You got a pretty new backhoe too.
It's
a couple years, 3 years.
Yeah, it's 2001.
We just bought one a few years ago.
A grader, not a backhoe.
That's a grader.
Bought a grader.
Oh,
No, this is a backhoe. It's 2001.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Is that why it doesn't appear on our list here? Is it being
the excavator?
That's correct.
It's expected. No, the backhoe, it doesn't appear.
The backhoe's number
Placement
80.
within the 5 years.
There's a-
So
yeah.
I'm just curious if that's a selling point, or that you're thinking it's going to extend the life of the.
It should be listed within the inventory, though. It's just not funded within the 5 years. Let me double check.
Right here.
There is. It's HD 18,
Yeah, it's HD 18.
but it's not funded.
That's right.
Yeah.
And originally, that's what we were looking at.
I see it?
Funding was a replacement of the backhoe.
that is.
And then we were requesting to get an excavator, which are really the same thing, but
Right.
you can do more with an excavator than you can a backhoe.
So it saves.
Okay, 6 years or more away.
Well, even though it's 2001, that is not.
That's going to be fine for that particular piece of equipment.
Okay. For those of you who are following along in the paperwork, so 3 or 4 more pages back, you see the full listing of equipment. I'm going to tell you the header on that in a minute. It is in the upper left-hand corner. It says Town of Brattleboro Capital Equipment Plan 2019-2023. That's a listing of the inventory of items and some of those inventory of rolling stock for us, and some of those don't have dollar figures in any of the 5 years of the capital plan because they're not planned to be replaced during this 5-year period. And that's the case with the backup. Anything further on the list as it appeared in the proposed budget? I'd like to just make quick mention of the sidewalk plow.
Yes, please.
And then I think you're going to want to hear from the public. So we are aware that the public is very interested in having you consider adding a sidewalk plow to this capital request. And staff is all for that if the board is inclined to support this. We are concerned about the degree to which the mileage of plowed sidewalk has been reduced over the years and the degree to which people who walk in the community have to walk in the streets when we've had snowy winters. In addition to that, because we, through those prior reductions in years past, not only reduced the mileage that we cover, we also cut back to just one sidewalk plow. As that plow ages, we have maintenance issues that come up most often, as you can imagine, in the immediate aftermath of a storm. The vehicle's out there working hard, and either something will happen because they hit a hard object, or it'll just run into a mechanical problem. And then we have no plowing going on the sidewalks for a period of time while the vehicle is repaired. So a second sidewalk plow would allow us to create a sort of a flexible plan where we aspire to maintain more miles of sidewalk than we currently do, but we would identify that sidewalk clearing plan in a kind of a prioritized manner so that if one of the plows does go down and we only have one plow out, first of all, at least then we would still be doing sidewalk plowing. And secondly, we could be making sure that we're hitting the highest priority areas during that time when we have limited resources. But when we get the second one back into service, we would go out into the other areas that we're not currently servicing at all. That would be our operational plan for how we would intend to address this and provide a better level of service to the community if you support the request. The estimated cost of the item is $139,000 to buy the sidewalk plow. We also think that there's a variety of different ways in which we could address the labor necessary to operate a second plow. If we simply direct somebody off of some other plowing responsibility, then the streets aren't going to get cleared as quickly in order to get the sidewalks cleared more quickly or more thoroughly. So we think actually we need to be looking at either adding a person or adding a seasonal person or some approach to that. And we've given some initial thought to that. We haven't costed it carefully, but if you do indicate a desire to give a good, careful look at this and are inclined to support it in this budget, staff will come back to you at a later date with a very explicit recommendation regarding how we can staff it properly.
Can I ask a question on, is the sidewalk tractor the same thing as the sidewalk plow?
Yes.
Because in the I'm looking at under capital equipment, HD 60A, HD 57. In 2022, I'm assuming that's replacing the current one. It's only $130,000 in 2022 dollars.
Right.
So don't you think it would be more back in 2022?
Yes, so our initial estimate for this was 130. That's the number we've been carrying in the plan. And then when the question came up at traffic safety and from people in the community about can we put a second one in, we said, well, it's going to be $130,000 expense, but yes, we'd be happy to present that to the board and have this discussion with you. When we went out to see what the prices are as of right now, we found that a real-time price is $139,000. So
you'll have to adjust
we're going to need to increase that item for the 2022 as well, but the real number for you for consideration this year is $139,000.
Okay.
I definitely think we need one. I actually am a little nervous about even just having two. But I see that, in a perfect world, I'd like three, but I mean, that's a lot of money. I know, but yeah.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
Well, I mean, I'd support getting some more numbers about the staff that would be needed to run it. I'm also curious what's the relationship between actual miles being able to be covered and how that affects speed at which it can be covered. It may be a little hard question to answer, but
depends on the snow.
We're not really doubling our speed and/or capacity. We are, in this plan, sort of talking about having more backup, because last winter, I believe, we had one go down for a few days.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, originally, we did have 3 tractors at one time. And then in 1995, a decision was made to reduce the labor force at Public Works and other departments throughout town. And the result of that was to go down to 1 sidewalk tractor, period. And then we also went from doing over 18 miles of sidewalk in town down to 13. And what's happened over time, because there's been changes, the traffic triangle out here in front of the municipal center was a change. So there's been sections added, and now we're up to about 14 miles. So when you look at the original plan, we're going to do 13 miles, 1 tractor, reduce the number of employees, and that's what we accepted, and that's what we went with. And over time, we've slowly increased Geese, Elliott Street. This section needs to be done, Cedar Street. And so now we're up to 14 miles. What can happen on a particular storm, as John had indicated, depending on the volume and how much snow you get that goes, because all the snow from the roadway goes into the sidewalk. So you couldn't use a conventional, like a snow blower, to do 13 miles or 14 miles of walk. It can take us up to 2 weeks to complete a route. If we had a small storm, a 4-inch storm, you got to realize that 4-inch storm from the roadway is all plowed over to the edge onto the sidewalk, brushed back. So that 4-inch is now, a foot or more that has to be plowed. It takes time. If we get a larger storm, or if the snow is heavier and wet, has that consistency where it may stick, it can take longer. So really, the most difficult task is we focus on the main routes in town. We want to get the Canal Street, we want to get the Putney Road, we want to get the Western Avenue, which are critical points where people walk and need to walk to get to work or for services. And then we branch out. So there's some streets that unfortunately, we don't get initially on a storm. It may take, again, days or weeks. So with another tractor, we'd be more efficient and be able to get those routes done in a much more timely manner. The other areas that we focus on are the schools, the Clark Avenues, the Green Streets, and those areas, and also where there's a lot of people that are using these roadways. Another thing that happens to us is we may, like on Canal Street, only be able to get one side, which is fine, but then people are in this awkward position where when they come from cross streets, they have to cross the roadway. You're always better off on a busy thoroughfare to be able to get the sidewalk on both sides.
I'll tell you, if you want to see a thankless job, follow one for...
It's brutal. It is truly brutal.
Follow one for 500 feet. And I feel so sorry for whoever's in that. Because on a big storm, that thing is all over the place, and it's a rough job.
And they usually go out, they have to wait, they have to delay until the larger snowplows have plowed everything off the roadway. And then normally that person's out at night pretty much by themselves and with their mic right to dispatch for help if they need it, but they're pretty much on their own. So they'll normally, on a storm, they'll work all night. Say a storm just happened during the early morning into the evening, everybody goes home. That person reports to work and then works all night to get ready for the sidewalks for the morning when people either go to school or walk to their employment.
Randy had questions.
I have 2 questions. Is it fair to say then that if you're not able to get to some of the roads because we only have 1 tractor, that it then becomes more cumbersome on the equipment because it's become more frozen at all, like the big banks that are on the edges?
It has some impact, but this equipment, is very powerful. This is, your snow blower at home is a 8 horsepower to 12 if you have a big one. This is 75 horsepower. It's a very large engine. We have different attachment. There's a V plow for smaller storms where they can go a lot quicker. They have a articulating plow to scrape off. That's another tool. And then ultimately the snow blower for the larger storms. But it does have an impact. depending on how long that snow's there and how much it freezes.
My other question is downtown. Is there, and this might be kind of a split question, is there a requirement for businesses to clear
Yes.
as well as the work? Because I can't tell you how many elderly people, including a woman with a cane that I could barely hold up, that I have had to pull over banks on the sidewalk
So
downtown.
there's three separate things going on there. The clearing of the sidewalk proper is the responsibility of the downtown business owners or the downtown property owners, often performed by the business owners. The clearing of the banks that form in between the parking and the sidewalk is our responsibility and is usually something that'll happen within the first 3 or 4 nights after a storm, where we go out and clear snow from those spaces, especially if there's another large snowfall forecast, so that we don't let that get too far ahead of us. All of these things, the timing of these things is very weather dependent. So depending on, if there's a big freeze coming in after a storm, we'll try to put the resources on it to get on it quicker so that the stuff doesn't freeze in place and become harder to clear out of those snow banks. Difficult for people. So there's those two things that relate to the sidewalk and the parking in the street. And then up until last winter, the intersections were actually kind of a no man's land. Some got cleared better than others. Some didn't get cleared much at all. And of course, the intersections are the place where people are entering the street from the sidewalk and trying to use the crosswalks.
Right.
So we took on responsibility for that last year. We contracted so that at the same time as our town employees are out doing the basic plowing and clearing of everything else, we've got contracted labor that clears town parking lots and the intersections downtown.
That's excellent, because I think most of the issues I've seen are at intersections, and it sounds like some of the other ones I've seen are the responsibility of business owners from the explanation you just gave me, so thank you.
And I'll have to tell you, if I shouldn't even say this, but if you go and see somebody downtown whose sidewalk is not shoveled, Patrick is our enforcer, and he actually does a really good job. So he does. He does.
Patrick.
Because he has to hear me complain all the time, but it's very effective when he reminds people you're supposed to shovel your sidewalk.
Kate, can I just ask?
Oh yeah.
I am not trying to micromanage your business at all, but I plow during the wintertime. And is there any way for the town trucks to be able to lift their plow up enough to do a sidewalk? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the one place I'm thinking of is Maple Street going down to the park. That's a long sidewalk. If they lifted their plow, they might be able to clear that.
No, that's you're correct, and we do that.
Okay.
It's a practice. We use some of the trucks have a snow plow in the front, and they have what they call a wing plow.
A wing plow, right?
So that area was done. It was actually not on the list, but it was a sidewalk that's pretty important because it goes to Memorial Park.
Right.
So we started. There's a whole list of other sidewalks that we try to clean up.
Okay.
That are separate but are used with a large mechanical piece of equipment with a wing. The graders have that ability also. It's really tough on the sidewalk.
Oh, it is.
It's very abrasive.
It is.
You'll notice if you look at that sidewalk that it's pretty beat up from doing that, but the benefit is there, so we still do it.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's a way, and again, I don't want to micromanage, and I don't want to beat this at all and labor this, but if there's a way, in a big storm, if once the guys got done with their regular route, if they went around and don't drop the blade onto the sidewalk.
Right, just swipe.
But maybe, leave a couple inches and let them, and it might be easier for the sidewalk plow at that point to be able to, and again, these guys work and gals work a lot of hours.
The other thing that you need to be aware of, there's only certain places that we can utilize that wing.
Right.
And Maple Street is probably one of the best examples.
It is, yeah.
It's not somebody's front yard. It's not your driveway.
Right.
It's not your sidewalk. Those wings could leave a snow pile in front of your driveway probably 5 feet high.
Right.
When it comes up and it carries along and then it hits a driveway, it's all going to release. And the plow's 12 to 13 feet. They're big. all that snow is going to go in the driveway.
See, that's when I can make
it's a
more money.
complicator.
So it sounds as though we would like some more information on the person, the cost of hiring.
Sure.
What your recommendations would be if we were to get a second sidewalk plow. I mean, does that sound like what we're all talking about?
Absolutely.
We'll put that together.
Yeah. Now, does anyone in the public have any comments about the budget? Yes. Please come on up.
Alice Charks, Brattleboro. I'm going to read actually from a letter that Louise Zach wrote, and I'm going to then go off on the end of it to say some more personal things. But she also wanted to say, Brattleboro sidewalks can be extremely hazardous for pedestrians in winter. According to DPW, there are 14.36 miles of sidewalk considered to be top priority for clearing because of the high concentration of pedestrian traffic. The town's only sidewalk plow can require 2 to 3 days or even longer to clear the entire route after a heavy storm. And then I'm going to actually skip the next piece because Steve attended to that, which had to do with the history, which is back to 1995. So now we're talking about 22 years later, having gone from 3 plows to 1. 22 years later, now we're asking to have reinstatement of at least 1 plow this year, and also the personnel, obviously, to do that. The people that are impacted by sidewalks not being cleared, the elderly, handicapped, other vulnerable populations, people who try to walk more for health or environmental reasons, train travelers who are trying to go to and from the train station, school children. And I would like to just address that population for a moment, since I'm involved with schools, and just say that I've been involved with Safe Routes to School, which was a federal program to encourage children to walk and bicycle to school. It started over 10 years ago. So there is a good number of students. For instance, at Green Street School, where I work, over 20% of kids walk to school. And to address one of the places which Steve brought up, which was Cedar Street. Cedar Street, there was some clamoring from neighbors a few years ago, and DPW said, all right, we'll plow some of Cedar Street. But in fact, all that they're able to plow with their limited resources is one side of one block. So it doesn't even go all the way down to the stop sign intersection with Myrtle, nor does it go even further where the sidewalk does continue one more street down. So if children are walking from the Myrtle Street, Spruce Street, Sycamore, anywhere around there, walking onto Cedar, there is no clearing. They have to walk in the road all the way up until the Acorn Lane intersection. And then they can go over the mound to get onto the sidewalk and walk up. And the other issue which you brought up, but it's very important to think about because the crossing guards talk about this all the time, is that if the sidewalks are only plowed in this direction, like east-west and Western Avenue, people have to cross the road, the pedestrians, and so they are going over big berms and mounds. And the crossing guards often take it on themselves to do it, but it can be a big chore. And so that's another part that the sidewalk plow, especially if we had more than one, would have the time to be able to do those crossway intersections.
Great, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I think, did Prudence want to come up?
I'm Prudence McKinney. I'm really pleased to hear that it sounds like there's some positive feeling about this idea of a second sidewalk plow. That's great. I've been attending traffic safety for 4 years now, and we're, I think the town and the citizens are really working hard to improve the safety. We've got a ways to go, but safety for pedestrians as well as bicycles and ability to move around in an active manner. But since I'm director of the public health office here, I do want to mention that physical activity is one of 3 behaviors. The other 2 are tobacco use and unhealthy diet. But one of 3 behaviors that leads to 59% of deaths in Windham County. So it has a lot to do also with chronic disease and just our ability to really keep moving and be active. And the last thing I just want to mention is that, as you probably know, Holton Home celebrated their 125th anniversary or birthday on Sunday. And I was at the home and I was talking to one of the elderly residents there. And she said that she likes to get out and walk, and she walks up the avenue half a mile every day. She loves it. It's really good for her. And I said, great, can you keep that up in the winter? And she said, oh, no, the sidewalk's not safe in the winter. It's often not cleared. She said, I have to just walk within the house, and, I really miss getting outside. And so anyway, it just, another demonstration of the whole range of population that are affected by when we can't really use our sidewalks. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone else? Molly.
I'd like to lend my support to this proposal also. As you know, I spend a fair amount of time in Montpelier in the wintertime, and I spend not a lot of time, but I do a lot of walking when I'm there. And I've been really impressed with the sidewalk clearing in Montpelier. And before 7 in the morning, the sidewalks are plowed, even on side streets. And I saw the mayor one day and I said, so, tell me about your sidewalk plowing. And he said they had 3 sidewalk plows for a town of 8,000. So I thought that was really interesting.
Molly, that's Montpelier.
Right. That's Montpelier. Well, all the money goes there, right?
Yeah. That's where our rooms and meals are.
Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up just to along that. And I also want to say that, I was here a couple weeks ago, and I'm here. I don't often get to attend select board meetings because I have a lot of other meetings to go to. But the interaction that you have with each other, so civil, so wonderful, respect for the public, it's really great. So I just want to commend you for that, because I've really enjoyed being here.
Thank you.
All right, now sit down.
Yeah, Terry.
Thanks, Molly.
Yeah, Terry Carter. I just want to reiterate what these ladies said. And what I've often pointed out at traffic safety committee meetings is what makes Brattleboro unique, that makes it so special, is also what needs this kind of attention because of, number one, the geography. We're in a valley, and we have a lot of rolling hills and curves, and it's true, the best thing you can do in the winter is bundle up and get out and move. And earlier tonight we were talking about commerce and the library, and it would be great if anybody, particularly seniors and children and the most vulnerable people with handicaps, can walk into town and do something healthy and get fresh air. And another unique thing for a town this size, I believe we're still around 12,000. Does that sound right?
12,000.
Yeah, we have 5 different routes going through here. 142, 119, Route 30, Route 9, Route 5. And so we do have a lot for a town this size. And this is often my war cry at traffic safety committee meetings when we're talking about fundings with the state, because they do tend to ignore this part of the state anyway. But we promote a wholesome lifestyle and a more holistic way of living. And Burlington gets a lot of funding because it's a college town and there's all these roads going through it. Well, we're on a smaller scale, but we have a similar dynamic. And also, we now have a college downtown and a circus school where young children are walking on Route 5. And I can't emphasize enough that what makes this town so special is also a challenge in having it safe, particularly for the most vulnerable, like children and people with handicaps and seniors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I can speak for just about everybody up here that I think we're all in agreement that we do need a sidewalk plow. We need another one. And if we could afford 2, it would be wonderful. But yes, I know if we could afford 2 more. But I mean, I think that, let's not bite off too much, but I'm pretty sure that we'll try to find a way to get this one.
Yeah, we'll get the plan. They're going to do the plan.
Yeah.
Does anyone else in the audience have any questions, comments? Yes, Franz.
Franz, if you mention Montpelier, I'm...
It's not about sidewalks. I hope that's okay.
That's good.
So Franz Reichsman, Finance Committee. In the comprehensive review of town operations, there's an item to create an inventory of vehicles and other major equipment with an estimated replacement schedule as an item for short-term action by the town. So I'm wondering, well, we've got an inventory more or less, I guess. We've got a list of what the different vehicles are. I don't see that their replacement schedule incorporated in that, at least not in the capital budget here. But even more than that, I'm interested in how the decisions are made as to when to replace a given vehicle. If you read a little bit of municipal government literature, you find out things that, well, you can go by the age, which appears to be what we're doing, at least with regard to the police cruisers. You can go by mileage, you can go by engine hours, or you can do an actual assessment of the vehicle to determine when it needs to be replaced. And on the associated issue of demand for electricity for electronic devices, there are other ways to provide that besides just running the engine. So I'm really just advocating getting to that part of the comprehensive review of town operations. To me, just going by the age of the vehicle, I mean, that's a proxy for the condition of the vehicle. And without, knowing anything about vehicles myself, really, and certainly being unfamiliar with the police vehicles, I'm not in a position to say that that's a good or a bad way to do it. But I wonder if there isn't some more explicit way to do that. And also if it wouldn't be worth incorporating some more advanced electronic features that might cut down on the wear and tear on the engine. Thank you.
Do you want to
Can I
address that?
speak briefly to that? Yeah. I think the point's really well taken that that is a task we need to get to. We have, you said an inventory more or less, and I think that's fair. It's a pretty complete inventory. We don't expect that there's anything significant that's missing from it, but we haven't done a careful, thorough verification of everything being on there being exactly accurate and making sure that there's nothing missing. And we certainly haven't done the analysis to turn it into an equipment replacement program. We intend to do that, and we appreciate your urging to get to it. I would like, however, to say that both now and in the future, the reason why it's going to be worthwhile to do it is it'll be an informative document, both for us and our staff work and our planning, informing the board as it's making policy decisions, helping the public to have a better awareness about the fullness of our fleet and our equipment items. But the nature of the volume of needs in the community and the breadth of our rolling stock in comparison to our financial wherewithal to replace things in a timely manner, even when we've got a better, tighter document to reflect our full inventory and our plans for replacement, we won't be in a position where we're just replacing things because it's their turn. We'll always be doing that fourth measure that you talked about of assessing the condition of a vehicle, and we'll usually be in a situation where we're going to assess that condition and nurse it for a little while longer than we'd like, because that's just the nature of trying to keep up with the variety of needs. It's been true for us with our infrastructure, and it's equally true. It's maybe more visible to the public with the infrastructure, the condition of roads and the condition of sidewalks, but it's equally true for us with all the pieces of equipment that town staff operate.
Good. Does anyone else in the public have any questions? So I guess the next plan is that we're going to meet on December 2nd, which is a Saturday, everybody. And it's 9 to 2.
Don't be late.
And it's going to be right here.
Correct.
And we're going to talk about the expense side, correct? And the departments are each going to go through and talk to us. Is that the plan?
Right. There'll be some summaries of departmental functions and operations, and then we'll look at the line items for each of the different departmental budgets. We'll do that, as Chair said, on Saturday, December 2nd, from 9 o'clock until we finish. We expect to be finished between 1 and 2 in the early afternoon. At the next regular select board meeting on December 5th, the budget portion of that meeting will focus on the request for a replacement of the fire ladder truck. And then the next scheduled budget discussion was going to be a special meeting on December 12th. We've learned that December 12th is the first night of Hanukkah, and so we're checking calendars to see if we can move that meeting to the Monday the 11th instead. We'll be putting something out to the public as soon as we've confirmed whether it's Monday the 11th or some other date that will be the rescheduling of that December 12th meeting. And then one last meeting for this year will be the regular meeting of December 19th. I should say on December, for that meeting that would have been on December 12th, it'll be a single-purpose meeting to consider budget matters, focusing on the proposed human resources professional and other potential increases in levels of service. And then on December 19th, as part of the regular select board meeting, we'll review the status of the budget at that time. Where are we in the decisions that have been tentatively made by the board? And I'll ask the board to provide direction to us on what additional information is needed for the meetings in January to make the final budget decisions.
That sounds like a plan. Yep. All right, thank you so much. We've got one last item on the agenda, which is committee vacancies and appointments. And we have one appointment, which is to the Recreation and Parks Board. And I guess it's one person who would serve until June of 2010. So I don't know if there's any nominations from people on the board.
I would like to nominate Todd Fontaine to the Recreation and Parks Board for a term ending in June of 2010.
Great. John's nominated Todd Fontaine. Is there any other nominations?
Yeah.
That seems odd.
2010?
Oh, that's what it says here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It must be 2020, do you
Must
think?
be 2020.
I don't know, I'll have to check.
Whatever it is.
2020.
Just, there's only one vacancy, and so whatever that term is, we'll put this person in there.
All right, we have a nomination of Todd Fontaine. Are there any other nominations? All right, so all those in favor of appointing Todd Fontaine to the Park and Recs Board, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Todd Fontaine is appointed. Now we have to announce other vacancies. So let's find where they are. Look it up. Okay. Do you want me to read them? I've got them right here. Okay. Thank you, Peter. The vacancies that we're announcing tonight are the Agricultural Advisory Board, and there are 8 vacancies. The Arts Committee, there are 4 vacancies. The Citizen Police Communications Committee, there's 1 vacancy. Design Review Committee alternate, we have 1. Development Review Board alternate, there are 2 vacancies. Fence viewer, and by statute it must be a legal voter of Vermont, we have 1. Honor roll, 1. Inspector of lumber, shingles, and wood, we have 1 vacancy, which is a 1-year term, and we have 1 vacancy on the Planning Commission. So anyone who is interested, you can go on the town website and find the applications, or you can contact the town manager's office for further instructions. That's it. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see people on December 2nd.
Thank you,
And
ASL.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
I was going to say Tom Crier. My God, that goes back a few years, doesn't it? Thank you, Reformer.
Everybody wants to be the wearer of coal.